as you guys know, I've been one of Trump's biggest and most consistent defenders over the years. When most people on the right have kind of thrown him under the bus, I've kind of stood by him. And the reason for that is I felt that most of his failures were not really his fault. His cabinet frequently stabbed him in the back. The Republicans in Congress, even when they had a majority, refused to pass his legislation. The judicial system, the bureaucracy, and the state governors were all like, Orange man bad, we're not going to cooperate with you. And I think he has had some pretty significant achievements despite all the things stacked against him. But I can't defend him anymore, and I have to say, in a lot of ways, his legacy is going to be one of failure, and God knows how many deaths. So I'm going to say it now, regardless of how many people wind up dying before this crisis is over. Trump and more generally the neoliberal world order have blood on their hands. Because essentially, the reason why there's an outbreak in the US is because Trump and his buddies on Wall Street wanted to keep the stock market high for just a little longer. It's kind of like the first flame in Dark Souls. Like they just keep throwing more and more onto it when it gets lower and lower, and it takes more and more fuel to just make it go a little longer. And I feel the US government took virtually no action on this until recently because their concern was if we say there's a problem, if we acknowledge there's a problem, that's going to hurt the stock market. That's going to lower the stock market, and that's more important. That's more important than national security. That's more important than people's lives. That's more important than our duty to the American people, is to make sure that the stock market stays really high for like one more week. And I think he was complicit in this, and I think, like I said, the entire neoliberal world order was complicit in this. It would have been so easy to deal with this thing. All they had to do was, when this broke out in China, suspend flights to East Asia. If they're bringing Americans home, be very cautious about it. I don't know if they need to seal compartments on an airplane, but long mandatory quarantines. And who knows if the lockdown even would have been necessary. Because if they like shut off flights, I don't even know how it would get to America. They just shut the flights, close the border, increase inspections on like trade and stuff like that. And we might not have even had an outbreak, like, period. The other thing they had to do is what they're doing now in Canada is back in January go, okay, guys, we need to like stock up on this stuff. We need to stock up on masks, on medical equipment, hand sanitizer, disinfectants in general. And the US government just should have started buying stuff up. And they could have also said, look, we're going to have to temporarily intervene in the economy. They don't have to nationalize businesses, but just work with businesses, maybe provide them subsidies or grants to start mass producing this stuff. And just go, look, we need some of the car companies. You need to shift your production from cars to making medical equipment. For some of the alcohol companies, we need you to stop making beer and liquor and start making hand sanitizer, because the process is very similar. And they could have done that. And that would have given them like a whole 2-month head start on this. You wouldn't have had all these people from like the Diamond Princess and other cruise ships just coming back to America. Like, God knows how many people they just let back in and they didn't screen and they didn't quarantine. Like, just think about this in a minute. Imagine if this had started like, I guess it's almost 3 months ago now. Like, the fact that the US government, and I get that it's a supplier, it's not literally Costco, but the fact that like the Surgeon General of the US issued like a statement, seriously, people, in all caps, stop buying masks at Costco because that's where we buy masks. Once again, I understand that they buy it from the same supplier, but I have this mental image of like a nurse in full nurse getup driving to Costco, throwing a couple like mega packs of masks into the cart and then taking those back to the hospital. Like, this is insanity. They don't have their own dedicated supply chain for like essential medical supplies. They don't have any stockpiles of this stuff. I don't think medical masks so bad. I mean, if there's a time, like if there's something you want to have a stockpile of, that would be pretty high on the list. Disinfectants, hazmat suits, all these things they really should have a stockpile of. When you look at how much money the US government blows on the military, you couldn't spare like 0.1% of that and buy some emergency preparedness supplies or ensure some like kind of supply chains in a situation like this. No, and once again, they could have gotten America's economy. They didn't even have to rejig the whole economy, just rejig some of America's manufacturing base to producing the stuff they need. And now we get the scenario where like we have 1% of the stuff we need, and whenever a new shipment comes into Costco, the doctors are going to be like waiting in line with everybody else to get like the toilet paper and the masks. Like it's insanity. And once again, the sole reason that they refused to do anything is they had to keep the stock market high for a little while longer. And now what they're doing is they're just money printing. I mean, I understand that the Federal Reserve is more complicated than that. The bond system's more complicated than that. But they're literally just like printing trillions of dollars of money. And I mean, that's got to have an inflationary effect eventually. And they're doing that and they're lowering interest rates. So, like, that's going to destroy people's savings because they aren't going to earn interest on their money. Government bonds are going to have are going to be like junk, and it's all the money printing's got to increase inflation. Also, like with all bailouts, it's like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to print trillions of dollars so students don't have to pay interest on their loans for a couple months. Well, why don't you put that $1 trillion into just paying all student loans down? Just pay $1 trillion and just reduce student loans by however much that is. And it never seems to work that way. It's always like, oh, we have to bail out the mortgage industry. Does that mean like reducing people's mortgages? No, it doesn't. It means giving money to like the bank or something so they can keep charging interest on the mortgages. And like we have a scenario now where the chairman or the president of the Federal Reserve of, I think it was Missouri, is like, we're going to have 30% unemployment and 50% cut to the GDP. So I guess to like the neoliberal elites, that was worth it. It was worth it to tank America's entire economy and destroy it for God knows how long, so the stock market would stay high for like another week or two. That's how sociopathic these people are. That's how greedy these people are. Like it's absolutely disgusting. And even now the situation just keeps getting worse. From what I can determine, America has by far the worst response to this of any developed country. No one seems to be agreeing. Some states have lockdowns, some states don't have lockdowns. Some states are saying, like, this is the end. Other states are saying it's just the flu, bro. Trump is, like, saying now we're going to reopen everything for, like, Easter. It's like maybe we can partially reopen the economy. Like, no. You have to pick one or another. If we wanted to have a semi-lockdown, the ship on that has sailed. If we had cut off all flights, disinfected or quarantined goods coming from China, then we would only maybe have a couple people with it. It could have been contained. Maybe they would have to shut down some parts of the economy, like maybe just movie theaters or something. But most of business could have probably continued as usual. But you opted not to do that, so we can't do halfway measures. We either have to lock this whole thing down until we get a vaccine, or at least we get this under control and we stop getting new cases, or we do plan 2, which is we just ride it out. We maybe just get, I don't know, vulnerable people to quarantine themselves, and we just reopen the economy and try to deal with the consequences. Either of those, I think, is a better option than this like half-assed semi-lockdown where we get contradictory information every single day. And like I said, this is Trump's fault. I mean, to be fair, if he had have tried to do more, they probably would have gotten Orange Man bad and shut him down. But like the constant just random shit he says, and like the Twitter remarks, and the like, nobody knows what's going on. if there's a time for consistent messaging, this would be the time. And I'm going to say something I never thought I'd say. I get that it's not necessarily him, it's probably more the people around him. But Justin Trudeau has done, generally speaking, a much better job than Trump has. As far as I can determine, Canada has had one of the best responses of any of the developed countries. Now, it happened way too late, but the border shut down. They did a hard border shutdown. All the provinces are on board. Policies are largely unified. Most provinces and large municipalities have declared states of emergency. There's a common plan, like what we're going to shut down, what we're not going to shut down. They have like plans in place to keep essential services flowing between provinces and across the border. You have the premier and the premiers and the PM meeting like every couple days at least, sometimes every day, and they're all staying on the same page. And they're like, here's the resources we need. Here's how we can share resources. We need to like stick together, and we need to have a common and consistent message. And they're doing that. And as much as I hate his voice, we're getting a calm message every day, saying what's going on, saying what they're doing, saying what progress is being made. Whereas the case in Trump, we're just doing like all this random nonsense and we have no idea what's going on. So, yeah, Trump and the neoliberal world order have blood on their hands. And Justin is actually doing a good job for once in his life. So, we're in clown world, people. We're in clown world.